Good afternoon and welcome to the third edition of the Scuola Democratica conference in Cagliari. I am Scuola Democratica, co-editor of the journal Scuola Democratica, professor of social education at Sapienza University of Rome. And really, I'm very happy and excited to be here today to officially open the conference. After 1 year of work to prepare this conference, we are finally here. And more than 900 people, almost 800 papers, 180 working sessions, a huge effort. Really, a great collective effort. For this, we would like to thank everyone. The theme of the conference, you know, is Education and for Social Justice. Will be presented after me in several speeches, and here in these few minutes, I just want to testify to the intention of Scuola Democratica journal to play a key role in the scientific and public debate on all the education issues in an interdisciplinary, open and inclusive way. This is the third edition, as I said before, after the 2019 edition here in Cagliari, Education and Democracy, and in 2021 edition online because of pandemic, reinventing education. Your presence at this third conference is a comfort to our effort and a strong motivation for our work. Appreciations usually are made to the end, but here, at the beginning of our work, I have to thank in particular 3 persons who have worked in the backstage during this year. Without their effort, nothing that will happen in these next few years would have been possible. First of all, I would like to thank Leonardo Piromani, a researcher and social scientist who over the years, in addition to studying the digitization of the field of education, has himself become an expert on technology. Leonardo set up the conference platform, he set up ConfTool, he set up the hub with the program I hope using named Conference for You. Leonardo took care of every aspect of the digital work that enabled everything that you have seen grow from a technological communication point of view. Leonardo has done the most valuable work enabling all of us to work here now during these 2 days. The second person I would like to thank is Isabella Iarusso. She has taken care of and continues to take care of every administrative and communication aspect of the conference. She has made an enormous effort for all of us. She has been a center of trust, competence, and motivation. Thank you, Isa. The third person I would like to thank is my colleague, Antonietta De Feo, from the University of Roma 3. She made the huge effort to coordinate the entire conference organizing committee. She took care of every detail, solved 1,000 problems, followed in every detail of the stage of the work of preparing the conference, from the call for panels, to the call for abstract, to all the stage of the evaluation of the proposal, to the care and coordination with the organization part in Cagliari, of every aspect of the preparation work, and enormous effort made with confidence and care. Thank you, Antonietta. And I would like to thank so much the entire organization committee that followed carefully all the organizational aspects of the conference. We would like to thank all the conveners, more than 100 people, all the speakers, more than 800 people. From now on, with our support, you will do the conference. We have a lot of trust in this process of self-organization. You know? We will recognize among us the youngest part of the staff, the young contributors who will take care over the logistic and communication aspect of the conference. This day will enable us all the work under the best conditions. Now, just for you some details, organizational details. First, make an agenda of your conference. You can use ConfTool, you know, to select the panel you are interested in. Download use the app Conference for You. Take care of the timing of the session, be present in the plenary, and be active in the work of the sessions. In the panel rooms, we will find all the information, including catering. Please use both the location for catering. One is inside, very, very magnificent place inside the Otto Botanical. You can ask the staff for any needs, which will be reported to the organizing committees, and we hope to solve any problem that they may arise. We apologize for any inconveniences. We have tried to plan everything, but many things will escape from your attention. We now start the first plenary, which I have the honor to coordinate as chair. As the program says, the floor will now go to Professor Mariano Conti. Please, Mariano Conti. From the University of Cagliari, for the institutional welcome director of the department of the conference. We would like to thank the University of Cagliari very much because for these 4 years it welcomed all of us with great institutional generosity. So now the institutional welcome.
Thank you. Okay. I'm the director. I'm the one with the tie, so you maybe imagine it. I'm pleased to welcome you to the 3rd edition of the Scuola Democratica conference. I'm the director of the Social and Political Sciences Department of the University of Cagliari, and my welcome is also on behalf of the faculty members. I'm thrilled to see so many passionate educators, researchers, stakeholders gathered here today, so very welcome. And your presence tells a lot about the importance of the topic we are diving into over the next 4 days: education for and social justice. 5 years ago, in 2019, we hosted the first conference here in Cagliari, as Assunta just said. It is an honor for our university to be chosen again by the Friends of the Association for the Scuola Democratica. Today, as we embark on our 3rd conference, we live in a time where the gaps in equity and access are starkly visible, and the role of education in bridging these gaps cannot be overstated. So we are here to study about it. This year's theme, as said, Education for and Social Justice, invites us to think critically about how these two concepts intertwine. So, education is not just about transferring knowledge. It's about empowering individuals, challenging inequities, and fostering inclusive communities. It's about ensuring that every student, every person can succeed and thrive regardless of background. So, over the next days, we'll hear from a fantastic lineup of speakers who will share their insight, research, and personal experience. We'll have workshop. This workshop encouraged us to roll up our sleeves and think practically about implementing social justice in our educational practice. That's the focus. And perhaps most importantly, we'll have many opportunities to connect, share ideas, and inspire one another. And that's what the conference was for. I'd to express my gratitude to the local organizing committee, who have worked tirelessly to put this event together. Special thanks to Marco Pizzaris, that is our newly elected director of the department. Lucky you, Marco. And to Gabriele Pinna, Emanuela Spano, and the director of the CIR, the colleague and friend Isabella Sulic. Your dedication and hard work make this conference possible, and I'm deeply grateful for your efforts. To our speakers, distinguished guests and presenters, thank you for sharing your expertise and passion. Your contributions are the heart of this conference. On a lighter note, let me say that I hope you will all have the chance to enjoy our beautiful city during your stay. Whether exploring the vibrant downtown or the city, enjoying the local cuisine, or strolling through the Poeto Beach and maybe having the time to make a swim back. And I hope you can also find the time to relax. We're proud of our city and thrilled to share it with you. And the local organizing committee has even been able to organize to make the Jacaranda tree blossom. I don't know if you have spotted violet flowers all over the city. It was arranged by the local organizing committee. Once again, welcome to the first edition of our conference. Let's have a fantastic time learning and inspiring each other. Thank you.
And we now have two short speeches that help us enter into the themes of the conference. The first speech is by Professor Luciano Benadusi. Luciano Benadusi from the University Sapienza Roma is the founder of the journal Scuola Democratica, the person with intellectual and moral passion led us all on this adventure on the journal phase and the conference later. Thank you, Luciano, for your effort and your passion. The floor is yours for 15 minutes.
I would first like to begin my introductory speech with multiple thanks to those who worked on the organization of the conference, to all the participants, to the keynote speakers, and to the organizations that promoted the symposia. A particular thank also to our colleagues in Cagliari that are collaborating with l'equipe in Rome for the success of this conference. And I also would like to mention that a long-time member and collaborator of Scuola Democratica has launched a prize for young researchers on the theme of equity in education. You will find details on a poster. This conference is a remarkable success in terms of participation, exceeding even our highest expectations. There may be many explanations for such success, one of which I would like to dwell on is that of a certain not usual characterization of our journal. What characterization I refer to two distinguishing features. One is implicit in the title Scuola Democratica. It is an academic journal, but based, unlike many others, on an explicit value and broadly political premise, democracy, which is in its essence a political justice. The second distinguishing feature is being a journal that is not only multidisciplinary, but intends to be inter- and transdisciplinary, with a prevalence, of course, not exclusivity, of the sociology-pedagogy binomial, a binomial that promotes both the necessary combination of value orientation and empirical analysis, and the multi-level dislocation from macro to micro of this analysis, without at all excluding openness to other disciplines, psychology, economics, demography, anthropology. Well, I believe that some of the aforementioned features of the journal have influenced both our choice of theme and the programmatic design of this conference by injecting elements of novelty, resulting in a further factor in the attraction of the conference, a program connotated by a particularly broad and complex approach to the topic of social injustice in education. Social inequalities, particularly this of opportunity, because implicitly considered the most relevant form of social injustice, has always been a key theme for sociology and more generally for the educational sciences. For some time now, interpretations of the concept of social justice, injustice, and to some extent also of the concept of equality, inequality of opportunity, for various reasons, have become more complex in public debate and in research too. Thus, our choice for a debate that takes its starting point not from a single criterion of ethical political judgment, but from a multi-criteria approach that allows for the enucleation and the comparison of the value foundations and empirical correlates of the various criteria of social justice or equity, if understood as its synonym. Concepts that have been at the center of debate in political philosophy for many decades, and with which it would be useful for the empirical sciences of education to intensify their dialogue. Another important aspect of complexity comes from the relationship between distributive justice and educational aims. That is, between education for whom and education for what, an issue that will also be addressed by some keynote speakers. What would be the value of an egalitarian redistribution of education if the purpose is assigned to the schools, let's call it model of quality, are not conducive in the future to a society more supportive, equitable, and democratic? A question prompted by the current exaltation of meritocracy, sometimes in the name of equality of opportunity, but in an interpretation that privileges individualism, competition, and selection. And what would be the significance of a decrease in disparities with regard to vertical socio-educational stratification, e.g., less impact of students' social family backgrounds in the attainment of the final secondary diploma, if horizontal stratification, i.e. of the pathways to get there, were to persist or even increase. Various are the possible causes. The differences in the social origin of students, in the content and purposes of curricula, in the quality of learning achieved, what often happens between generalist tracks and vocationalist tracks, the latter being relegated, as in Italy and elsewhere, the function of fallback choices for students coming from failures in previous paths and or unmotivated to pursue ambitious educational and occupational goals. The above occurs not only for tracks, but also to some extent for their internal diversifications, if they are stratifying and segregating rather than equalizing and inclusive. Diversifications today evoked by a buzzword as seductive as ambiguous personalization. These issues of the relationship between equity and equality and between inequalities and school pathways will be addressed by more than one of our keynote speakers and also featured widely in the many panels and symposia. You will not be surprised that in the chosen perspective of complexity, not only the often neglected nexus between educational and social justice becomes central, but also that between education and democracy. Hence, the emphasis on the purpose of education at all its level for democratic citizenship. Significantly, in many countries, the level of education appears from polls and election results to constitute the main antidote to the growth of populism and post-democracy. And this occurs despite the frequent limitations of citizenship education. Another complexity of the idea of social justice is that related to the different levels of education. For reasons of time, we would have had to lengthen the duration of the conference, and because of what we anticipated would be the prevailing interest of the participants, we will focus above all on the levels of schooling and early childhood education as a generator of social disadvantage whose effects are difficult to remove in the later stages of education. This issue will also be the focus of a keynote speaker. We have, however, scheduled a symposium organized by the association that supports our journal to discuss the convergence of university and schools in fostering inequalities, for example, to teacher training. Finally, a characteristic feature of the conference, as it is of the journal, will be the focus as much on the analysis of injustices as on the policies implemented, proposed, and proposable to counter them. Many of the panels and all of the symposia, which although primarily investing in the Italian situation, address issues no less important in various other countries, will make use of this dual theme, in which, once again, the analytical approach complements and converges with the political value dimension that characterizes educational reflection. The conference will reflect and discuss the factors that have held back or aborted the social justice policies undertaken in education, but also on strategies that, on the contrary, have proved or could prove useful for the purpose. One that emerges from research at international level is intersectoriality. That is, the convergence on the goal of social justice as multifaceted concept of different sectoral policies, more numerous than is usually thought, can be mentioned. In addition to educational policies, those of economics, culture, migration, territorial equilibrium, and urban planning, as well as welfare, gender, and families. The success of the so-called Nordic educational model seems also well dependent on the coexistence of some of these favorable conditions during a certain period. They have become much more difficult everywhere today, as the winds of politics unfortunately blow in other directions. A conference such as this, which deals comprehensively with the issue of social justice in education on the basis of empirical evidence arising from international and comparative research, we hope will be of some help in changing its direction.
Now, the second short speech by Professor Marco Pizzalis. Marco Pizzalis is the main local organizer of the conference and Sociology Education, coordinator of the Sociology Education section of the Italian Sociology Association. Marco offers his contribution to the conference topic.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all for being here at the third conference of Scuola Democratica. I thank the University of Cagliari and the Department of Political and Social Science for their organizational support and the facilities provided. I want to thank Professor Luciano Benaduzzi, founder of Scuola Democratica, for his work in maintaining a pluralistic space in Italy for school and education. This conference is organized in collaboration with the Inter-University Center for Didactic Research of the Universities of Cagliari and Sassari. I want to greet the director, Professor Isabella Sunis. I want to emphasize the importance of holding this conference in Sardinia. Sardinia is part of the original core from which the current Italian state took shape. Despite this, like significant parts of the south of Sardinia has been forced into a subordinate condition that Antonio Gramsci described as a colonial model of domination. The birth of the Republic, founded on the Constitutional Pact, has been the basis of a long period in which equalizing policies and a form of solidarity, regionalism emerged. This journey, although contradictory, was guided by the great popular parties of Catholic, Socialist and Communist inspiration. It was interrupted in Italy in 1994 when the parties of the Constitution passed into opposition for the first time in our country. That moment was a turning point when economic restructuring took shape worldwide. At that moment, the hegemony of the neoliberal project accelerated in Italy as well. In the field of industry and work, the two fundamental political and conceptual devices were deregulation and delocalization, which led to the economic restructuring in Europe. In this process, the school was recruited into the ongoing paradigmatic revolution through the concept of knowledge, society, and economy. The fundamental concept of this process are competition, autonomy, differentiation, accreditation, and evaluation. In essence, these concepts have built a hegemonic discourse on democratic schools and universities that provided a specific response to what François Dubé described as the institutional crisis. After 30 years, it seems clear that the neoliberal project on schools and universities was one of the elements in the struggle to overcome the social democratic model that had dominated Europe since the post-war period and build a new one centered on welfare and the market. In this context, educational policies have pursued a project of differentiation and hierarchy of schools and universities, profoundly modifying Italian schools and universities unitary and egalitarian paradigm. This process has taken place within a framework of pre-existing structural inequalities. A consequence is the acceleration of the migratory flow of students from the south to the north. In this way, the subordination of the south and its ancillary role in the Italian economy has been crystallized and perpetuated. Now, I would like to return to the issue of social justice. Starting from this point of view, from this here and now, that is, being part of the South within the global North. There are so many of us here today with a common focus on exploring the theme of social justice. Despite our diverse perspectives, we all feel an urgency to place the issue of social justice at the heart of the cultural, scientific, and political debate. In this address, I would like to highlight a central issue: the need to place the problem of epistemic justice at the core of our scientific debate and the politics of science. We should accept that there is no social justice without epistemic justice. This problem has several dimensions, and I will discuss briefly two central elements. One is related to systemic symbolic violence. The second is related to the hegemony. On the one hand, the symbolic violence occurs in the systemic devaluation of specific research approaches, objects, and particular research fields, such as studying marginal areas, regions, and schools. On the other hand, it takes place through the classification, evaluation, and devaluation of schools and regions. An example of symbolic violence is represented by the reproduction of schematism in the analysis and the representation of data. Databases are usually realized and analyzed following a traditional partition of the country into different macro regions, where the north opposes the south. What is the scientific basis of such a partition? Is the south a unitary entity? Are the islands homogeneous entities? Why must we oppose the north and the south to understand the social and educational issues? In this way, are we reproducing a political or a scientific discourse? Why does the evaluation have to produce a corresponding devaluation? The reform and modernization efforts, even those ostensibly progressive, have adopted the language of a lack of modernity, delay, and incompleteness to define the many South, geographic, social, and epistemic, that cross our countries. Following Santos de Souza, an epistemic injustice reflects an uncritical vision of progress, promoting the monoculture of the dominant scale, where the global is hegemonic and the local particular is insignificant. For this reason, we must criticize any comparative research that presents its results as a verification of a race, where the South is presented, quoting Franco Cassano, as an unfinished form of the North, rather than a critical resource. I want to focus on the second element related to hegemony. In the 60s and 70s, bottom-up approaches and democratic values characterized the pedagogical debate and the practices worldwide, from Antonio Gramsci to Paulo Freire. The authoritarian structure of the school was interrogated. Over recent decades, we have witnessed the crisis of practices, knowledge, and experiments that in the last sought to construct alternative horizons of meaning about education and social justice. These alternatives were popular, radically democratic, and participatory. Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed does not claim for school inclusion of subalterns, but rather it claims to include the school in a general societal change and liberation process. Democratic and radical pedagogies were hegemonic in the 60s and the 70s and founded on participation. In the last 30 years, they have been marginalized, and their concepts have been reframed, changing the final goal, which is no longer the universal movement of liberation of subalterns, but the individual achievement and success in an egalitarian capitalist society and a school managed following the new public management standards. Let us take the notion of inclusion, which comes from the Latin includere, and it seems to be used today in the meaning of inclusion, to shut in different marginal groups within the frame of the school. The concept of inclusion thus defined, that is, of keeping inside, fits perfectly with any form of institutional racism and segregation of an ethnic basis. For this reason, a claim for a decolonized notion of inclusion requires a clear conscience of how the state, the market, and the school contribute to reproducing social, gender, and ethnic inequality. To bring the discussion back to social justice, a radical epistemological rupture seems to be the only antidote to epistemic subalternity. The epistemological rupture is understood as an operation of rejection and systematic questioning of any form of knowledge proposed as universal and hierarchically superior to others, and of any epistemological device that presents itself as hegemonic, in guiding research practices, theories, and paradigms related to the possible development of future educational systems. In conclusion, I am calling for epistemological vigilance. According to bachelor's epistemology, scientific knowledge is not just a social construct, but also shapes the reality it observes. Thus, choosing a research object, theoretical framework, method, and approach is not socially and politically neutral. For this reason, following Bourdieu, I stand for a radical form of reflexivity directed to unveil the subject of objectivation, industrial research, and its interests. Against the narcissism of the intellectual, we have to admit that our work in the academic global race is without scope and solipsistic, even when rewarded by the libido of the citation index. Against this attitude, we have to learn to act as a collective intellectual. What is needed is a collective scientific work directed to examine school processes and lay the foundation for a counter-hegemonic discourse available for social actors in their confrontation with dominant discourses and norms. This counter-hegemonic discourse asks to refresh the spirit of our democratic constitution, founded on principles of solidarity and equalization. From a Gramscian perspective, a counter-hegemonic discourse can blossom through consciousness, organization, and mobilization. In this frame, the researcher may play a vital role in the organization of the culture, reframing the educational discourses and producing knowledge available for the actors in the field. What we can do for social justice is first and foremost to unveil all the conditions that produce within the school and academic work the legitimation of structural forms of symbolic and economic domination. There is no social justice without epistemic justice. There is no social justice without questioning all forms of economic and geopolitical domination. I've finished. Thank you once again for being here.